Hello again. Welcome to Becoming More Than Your Title. I am Sarabeth Berk, and I am a hybrid professional. I also research and write about hybrid professionals in the workforce. What is a hybrid professional? If you haven't heard that before, I am so happy to explain this. Essentially, there are three types of workers in the workforce, and we've only been talking about two of them, experts and generalists. Does that sound familiar? You usually are told you have to fit one of those two categories. You have to be a deep expert and know one thing really well. But if you do a lot of things, then you're probably a generalist. But a lot of workers don't just fit into those two areas. There's something else, and they don't know how to explain it or express it. And they're caught in that stuck moment of how do I get people to see me for all the things I do without feeling like I just do a lot of things and it's confusing. Well, that's where hybridity comes in. Because if you've been using the terms, I wear a lot of hats, I'm a jack of all trades, I'm multi-passionate or multi-talented, you're not just many things. You're actually the integration of all of those things together. And so hybrid professionals are people who intersect their different identities, and at the intersection, they are their truest professional self. In the intersection of your identities is your unique value. So finding this helps you really stand out and differentiate yourself. Hybrids are all over the workplace, and hybrid jobs are being hired more and more. So it's really important that we start talking about this in society and thinking about talent in terms of people that do many things, people that are experts, and people that are hybrids. Hybrids are able to cross over and connect and translate and work across disciplines in ways that they see things other people just don't see. When you have all these identities, you are merging them and combining them, and that's really your gift. So I talk about this and share about it because I feel, and I know so many people are looking for this idea to help them with their own career. But then the reason I'm hosting these on LinkedIn is to let other hybrid professionals share their stories and let you hear what they've struggled with, what they've overcome, how they use hybridity to excel and succeed in their career path. So this is really an awesome discussion, and I cannot wait for our guest today, which is Michelle. And Michelle is the founder of Red Zebra. So she's going to explain that in a moment. So without further ado, we are going to get started. Welcome, Michelle.
Oh, welcome, Sarah. You're not going to believe what's happened. My light has just blown. So just while you were talking, you're not going to believe it. But anyway, hi, how are you?
Well, you still look great. I can see you. I'm good. How are you? You can breathe.
Yeah, I'm a little, anyway, it'll be fine.
I know. These things, all the technology these days, it's unpredictable.
I know.
Michelle, where in the world are we finding you?
You're finding me in Mornington on the Mornington Peninsula in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia.
I love that.
In autumn, in the morning.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's afternoon here. And so there's a huge time difference. And I think you're my first international hybrid guest. So thank you.
That's even more exciting.
This is a great conversation. Michelle, people can find you at Red Zebra. That's your website that I just put up. And I want to start with your backstory. I really usually like to start with the question, what do you do? Because it's so common, probably overused, but we use it all the time. So let's begin there, because answering that really is the test of how do you explain yourself.
It is a bit, isn't it? So I'm an identity activator. That's my hybrid title. So where did it all start? I started, my first professional identity was as a secondary teacher. Interestingly, when I was at university, I studied a hybrid course, which was history sociology.
Ooh.
It was a hybrid studying, and in this case it was Latin America. We studied Mexico, Brazil, Cuba, and it was a hybrid of history, literature, art, and music.
Awesome.
Straight history. Oh, it was awesome. I loved it. So as a teacher, I actually wrote a curriculum for an Australian studies program and I did the same thing. I used primary historical sources. We listened to music, we read poetry, we studied the art to get a sense of the history. It was a hybrid course. Who knew? And so from there I went into my second identity, I think was really careers advisor. I was still in education, but I was working solely as a careers advisor. So that was my new title. Then when I started, in between I went into the commercial world, and I did a lot of commercial stuff there. I'd had management roles. So there were these other titles that sort of came amongst it, as a leader, as a manager of people, as a manager of a function. And then I had this kind of notion that I wanted to do something that was a little more creative, and I liked playing with fashion. So I went off and I studied to be an image consultant. So personal styling, colour, communication, inner image, all of that. And then through redundancy, I ended up in another organisation, and I had an opportunity to certify in leadership development in a global leadership competency model. So I now had this other thing where I was kind of, a leadership development coach. And so when I introduced myself to people, even until recent times, I probably would have said, in the lack of anything else creative to say, oh, I'm a personal branding or an executive coach, because that's the only thing that was kind of common over the last 20 years has been the kind of executive coaching. But I realised that actually didn't tell people what I did.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it didn't communicate any of those other past identities in any way, or what I'd learnt along the way that I was bringing to my clients now. So hybridity, like I love it. I just love it. Like I said to you earlier, every time now when I talk about, because I borrowed the term hybrid.
I'm so glad you did. Please do.
Because I love it. So I now talk about hybrid personal brand. Tongue twister this time of day. And I don't know if you want me to talk about what that means for me now, or whether you want to. Do you want me to go on about?
Well, why don't we pause there for a second? Because you just laid out so much. I heard a lot about your history of, there were like 6 different career changes in that, from teacher to career advisor to the stylist. I mean, I was kind of losing track, which was really impressive. And that really right away shows me that hybrid nature was growing for you because of the changing and the shape shifting. But as you said, you were accumulating all of these identities, and then it's like, well, now who are you? So when did you come to this point when you realized you were the sum of those parts, where you weren't just one thing or something else, but all of those things mattered? How did that become a realization for you?
Sarah, I really think it was when I was starting to think about, where do I sit in the marketplace as an individual practitioner? So what is it that I bring to the conversation of personal brand that is a little different maybe to others? So I knew that there were people in that space who'd come out of fashion and were talking about brand, or they'd come out of marketing and were talking about personal brand. And I started mapping this out, and I literally did a Venn diagram. This is going back probably 5 years, 6 years.
Okay.
Possibly more. So I had a Venn diagram, and in one of my circles, I had career advisor, career management. In the other, I had this leadership. They intersected, leadership development. In the third, I had image management. And I would say to people, I have qualifications in those 3 circles, and where they intersect is where I talk about personal brand. So I bring my perspective from careers, leader development, and personal image to the conversation of personal brand. And then that's how I would work with leaders to build influence, to plan career strategy, to plan how to actually show up.
Yeah.
To brief their photographers, brief their social media people,
Yeah.
using those 3 perspectives.
I love this. I want to freeze right there, because that just shows you inherently knew about intersectionality, and you were really getting clear both to help your customers or clients understand, I work in these 3 areas, I'm the combination of them. And that was the way you invented a way to describe yourself. I love it.
Yes.
And so that has now taken you into the personal branding space, right?
Oh, yeah. I've been in the personal branding space. Look, I've been probably saying to people that's what I do for close to 20 years. I was talking about personal branding when William Arruda, who's the kind of guru of personal branding, wrote his first book, Career Distinction. Okay. And that just resonated with me so much. He'd come from a marketing background.
Okay.
And he would say the way to develop your career, the way to seek promotion, the way to transition is to work out your distinction. And I then kind of got my formula of how I helped people discover their distinction, which was from the intersections.
Boom.
I know. This is why I love you, Sarabeth.
It's like we were meant to find each other.
Across so many kilometres. But that's exactly what I was doing. I would actually, that was the only way it made sense to me for people to really understand where they stood at in a competitive market.
Right.
So if you've got 5 engineers applying for the same job, how are you going to separate yourself out? You've all got the same qualifications. You've had similar experience. But what is it? Let's look at what you've achieved, how you've done it, what the theme is, and where each of those intersect.
Exactly. That's a big revelation right there. So now, you had referenced this earlier, so I want to come back to it. You're talking about what you do as hybrid personal branding. Do you want to explain that to us?
Okay. So I have borrowed your graphic of the 3-legged stool.
Yes.
I love that because I think it's really simple. So if you think of, for those who haven't seen it, you think of a stool that you would sit on with 3 legs. You might call it a table. I don't know. But so if the seat where we're sitting is personal brand, then one of those legs is work, is our professional identity.
Yes.
Who we are when we show up at work and we're being our absolute very best.
Okay.
The second leg is who are we as a leader in either our family or our community or at work. And the third is how do people see us? How do people experience us? What's it like to be in the room with us?
I like that.
Thank you. And that holds up this personal brand.
Yeah.
So that's where the hybridity comes in. It isn't, to me, personal brand isn't how many posts I can do on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or anywhere else. That's terrific, but in so many cases it's not. Well, I'll say it's fake. Let's face it. You can do anything really. But I really want people to be thinking, I don't want to hide anything. I want permission with my personal brand.
Yeah.
If I am an artist, say, then my banner on LinkedIn could be a piece of my own work.
Yeah.
Same if I'm a photographer.
Yeah.
I might be an accountant, but if there is something else to me, I want that to be expressed as part of their personal brand.
Yeah.
You and earrings. I mean, I love that. I kind of go, there's Sarabeth, she's got another pair of
I
earrings.
know, I got to spice it up.
But it becomes your signature marker. So people, and how did I come to that? I just liked wearing red. I mean, there was nothing, there's no science to this. I just liked wearing red, and people associated me with red. So, and then I heard the story about the zebras.
I was just going to ask you about that. Okay, so let's pause for a second, because now we're going into your career and your company. So all of this that you just mentioned about personal branding and the three-legged stool, I'm a huge fan of. I love how you're looking at intersections to help people brand themselves.
Yeah.
But then your story behind your brand, let's go into that. So tell us.
So it is probably 9 years ago. I was with a group of coaches invited to go to the Richard Branson Centre for Entrepreneurship in Johannesburg in South Africa. And he runs a centre there where he runs training and development, mentoring and support for young entrepreneurs so that they can build a business that is sustainable. And by that, it has to employ others. And we were taking a group of these young folks out to a game park to run the program there. Awesome program, by the way, but that's another story. And everywhere at this game park, of course, there were zebras. We call them zebras, you call them zebras, but they're the same.
Okay.
There's one behind me watching.
Yes, there is.
And I was just intrigued with them. You know, we'd go. We went on a little safari, and this sort of herd of zebras, and I just there was just something about them. So I was kind of talking about them a lot while we were away, and I learnt the story from some of the locals, which was that the zebra stripes are like our fingerprints. So no two zebras have the same stripe pattern. And that just resonated for me about personal brand. When we are really, by the way, personal brand is not what we think it is. It's how others remember us. It's not what we say it is.
That's a really big statement. Yeah.
What others say about us and what they remember. And that was what I was remembering. And it just sort of stuck with me. And the group of coaches, we were talking about this one night, and I said, I think it's probably time I rebranded my business. And they're just kind of gone, no brainer, red zebra. Like, look at you and look at them, and you like them. And it talks about individuality.
Yes. Got chills on that one. Yeah.
And so, boom, there it was.
Yeah. Well, how beautiful is that to think, you know, all zebras look the same. They're all zebras or zebras, except until you reveal this key piece of information to us that each zebra has different stripes and it's their unique fingerprint. That is us in our work and in our professional identity and in our personal brand. When we all call ourselves, I do marketing, I'm head of sales, I'm a designer, I'm a coder, I'm an artist. That's just another term, like I'm a zebra. What kind? Show us your fingerprint.
Exactly. And so in our world, you know, you talk about you're more than your title. I've been saying for years, you're more than your resume.
Yeah.
You know, your resume is just a bunch of words and titles on a piece of paper. And we are more than that. Work is what we do. It's not who we are. Who we are is at our intersects.
Yes.
It's at our intersections where everything that we've done, everything that we're interested in, everything that we have a passion for comes together. And that's how we're individuals. That's what about us.
It's very well said. I have so many thoughts running through my head. Being more than your resume is really important, and people get really fixated on, but I need the resume to get the job and all of that. It's like, okay, I get it. Like there is protocol here. Yes. But once you get past the resume stage, you've got to tell your story. You have to be able to sell yourself and explain, who are you? How do you do what you do? And to me, that's the power of, if you don't understand your hybridity as these superpowers and your unique secret sauce, you're not going to be able to explain your personal brand in a story either.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's how I help people prepare for interviews. kind of, we take, when we're presenting the evidence, what we're doing is looking for just that ingredient.
Nice.
Where the coming together over here allowed us to have the success in this particular instance because of the special way.
I love it.
That we do what we do.
So good. Well, I have another question, because I know you've gone through parts of my workbook and you've looked at your Venn diagram, and you said you developed a hybrid title for yourself. So tell us how that journey went. What have you learned about yourself? And can you start by sharing what, your primary professional identities are, which is the foundation of your hybridity? Because if you, and this is for people listening, if you don't know the core pieces of your professional identity, then you're just sort of like a recipe with too many ingredients. You've got to know the right ones that are part of you. So exactly. How has this journey gone, and how did you figure out your hybrid title?
Well, can I just say, I really love the way you set it out. Having worked with a load of this stuff over the years in different shapes or forms, I really liked the way you did it. And even though I can talk about this stuff and I can help other people find it, I did I did find it difficult to do myself. Absolutely. It's like the plumber who has the rusty pipes. It's hard to do this stuff in your own head.
Yeah.
So I was listening to you in my mind as I was going through it. So the first one was certainly the educator, the teacher. There's no doubt about that. That's one of my professional identities. And in ways various, I still do that with my clients. So when I'm mentoring, I'm probably doing a lot more teaching and facilitating, but I wouldn't call myself that now. But that was my first one.
Sure.
Then it's the careers advisor. And there was a lot of, when you're advising secondary school students for subject selection, university entrance, careers and jobs following that, there's a lot of information you have to hold in your head. And you have to keep it refreshed. And that was, and then I did that in a university setting also. So there was that was really who I was for quite a number of years. That's how I would introduce myself. I'm a careers counsellor, which is fine, but now I'm more than that. I don't want to offend the careers counsellors that could be watching. And then when I started working with image, I guess I was styling and such, but I would call myself an image consultant in that space. And so I wrote these down as I was going through your process. I didn't really capture the other. So the titles like head of department, acting vice principal, national manager, placement, outplacement, executive leadership team, they were sort of really specific titles that I left to the side.
Yeah.
Because it's more, for me, it's those things pop up at the intersections, but it's really what I learned from those rather than who I was. So then the next part of your exercise was, what was I doing? Who am I when I'm really at my very best doing any of these things?
Right.
And I went back to client feedback, testimonials, what people had said in the past.
Yeah.
And also there's a personal branding online audit that I give all my clients to do, and I do every year or every second year.
Okay.
And I looked at what the feedback was in that. And that was where I was able to pull out that stuff around, I generate clarity for people. I asked them questions that they hadn't been asked before that helped them really see their own themes.
Yeah.
And it was that's that kind of gives me chills a bit. I help them to uplift their influence.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I've worked with some fabulous people, and they've been very patient with me while I make them do their Venn diagram. And so my first pass through doing your exercise, I came up with the individualizer Kindle because I do love a thesaurus, I have to say.
Yeah.
Particularly when we're looking for words to explain our intersex and where we merge. And the thing about the Kindle was, you know, if you kindle a fire, it sparks.
Yeah.
It ignites, it promotes. And that's what I want to do with my clients. I want them to really be spiked into a new way of considering their brand and considering how they can really attract the opportunities if they're a little more mindful and intentional about how they message that. But so then I'd been away for the week, like I mentioned earlier, and I think the Identity Activator sort of sums up everything because it brings everything together. I don't know. What do you think is a hybrid title?
So just to be clear for the audience, Identity Activator is where you've landed at the intersection. That's your hybrid title.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the minute we got into this streaming system and you were here, you were telling me, I have a hybrid title. Did you see it on LinkedIn? And you were glowing about it because it seemed to bring some clarity to you. And I think that's a huge part of this is you've got to feel and own and be confident in your hybrid title. And so just watching that, I felt really good hearing it come out of your mouth. And then now hearing the explanation of how you got there, the Identity Activator, and even using the thesaurus, like Kindle, like, yeah, that's a good word, but there's more. And the activator is like the next level.
It's the energy.
The energy.
Yes.
And I think that I'm glad you said that because the words we choose as our hybrid identities and hybrid titles have to feel a certain way. You'll know it in your body. I tell people you've got to say it out loud. They can't just write it down because it's different when it comes out of your mouth.
Isn't that
Yeah. So I feel it's really good. And now that I just learned more about your history too, of when you were the academic advisor and the stylist and all this, you were doing activation all through those jobs, right?
Yes, that's the thing. And that's what I've just kind of, I mean, there's more to it.
Sure.
There's a lot more to it. Wait for the book. No, but there's a lot more to it. But it's just really that's what I love about what you're doing. You are giving us another way. I feel like you're legitimizing what I've been saying, which is really good because I don't feel so alone now. Oh, intersections. You've got to look at your intersections.
Yeah.
Kind of sense. It's the energy. It's the energy that we want, which is how I got to Purassion.
And that's another topic I wanted to get to because you made a hybrid word that's part of your whole process.
I did make a hybrid word. I'll hybrid anything, really.
I love this.
Funny. It jumped out of my mouth one day when I was talking about, this was pre-COVID, and I was talking to a colleague about what we could be offering during COVID. And we were talking about kind of a career in a year. You know, it looks like we're going to be locked down for a year. You could spend a year reviewing and reinventing your career.
Yeah.
And I was explaining in that I really wanted people to get to their purpose for whatever their career choices were, because without that purpose, there's no passion.
Yeah.
And without passion, there's no energy.
Yeah.
And so we don't deliver on our purpose if we don't have energy. So, and I was, again, I get a little excited, and it jumped out of my mouth. This Purassion jumped out of my mouth. I'm going, oh my goodness, that's the word.
The word. That is a beautiful word. Yeah. And it feels right. Like it just came to you and you're embracing and embodying it. And then, that goes back to intersections. Hybridity is about inventing things at the intersection of existing things. And I think the creativity and the permission to do that is what we need to give each other. Good for you. So exciting. Michelle, tell me again the little story you started with before we went live of how when you introduce yourself and what you do and you mention hybridity, what is the reaction you've noticed?
I have noticed that people are very inquisitive and they lean into the conversation. So I said, I'm an executive coach.
Yeah. I'm done.
Oh, I'm a personal brand coach. Oh, great. You can help me with my social media.
Check.
No. That's not a little bit more to that. But when I started talking about hybrid professional brand, people paused and hybrid, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Which, as you say, that's an opportunity for in your pitch to really say what you want to say in your own, like it gives you permission to not have to say something predictable.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that with people who have had a solid history, whether they're, even if they're in their own business now, but there's been a journey for that, then they're lighting up because they can see how they can bring their spin into their space as they market themselves and their businesses. But the other night I was having the conversation with some younger folk who don't, who might have only had one career as such, and they linked into the conversation and they were like, yeah, this is really interesting. And there was a different, it was almost like you can see people's minds.
Yes.
Intersecting, merging,
Yeah.
thinking to themselves, how does this apply to me?
I love that. Because it's a very different conversation than if you and I and a couple other people are networking and we're just listing all the things we do. Oh, you do events, I do that too. Oh, you do some of this on the side. Oh, and I have this. It's just kind of like who can list the most things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And hybridity is different. Like that leaning in, I tell people, just use the word hybrid. You're going to see a different reaction. And people are like, really? Just that one word? And it does. It catches your audience and they go, tell me more. And that's what you want, right? Everybody wants the chance to explain more about themselves, to build a better connection or relationship. And when we use standard things like I'm a coach and I just do branding, people tend to tune out. And when you're a hybrid, they start to lean in. So good.
Not only do they tune out, they go to a place where they think they know what you're going to say.
Yes. Yes.
And so, what we know about the mind is that, we need to listen to people to connect. And in order to listen to connect, we need to be using this sort of, frontal cortex where we're a little more creative. And using a word like hybridity switches that on for the person you're talking to. And instead of going back here and going, oh, yeah, I know she's going to talk about coaching now. And, and I've heard all that before.
Yeah.
I've had that coach before. Well, that didn't go so well.
Exactly.
But now we've really opened up something completely different where they can't do any of that pre-selection in their mind.
I am so with you. I've heard this termed the novelty. When something novel happens, it does fire new neural pathways. And by even just using the word hybrid, you're starting to activate that. And then additionally, your hybrid title is like, who's met an identity activator before? Whoa, now my brain's really going, wait, I can't operate. I can't process that. Tell me. It's great.
Yes. And I think it allows us to give our story. It gives us permission then to give our story, doesn't it? Yes. We don't feel like, oh, I shouldn't be talking about me.
Yeah. And it needs that stronger first impression, which that's that moment we have that split second to leave somebody with like, remember me, and don't you want to like connect later?
That's the thing. And look, it's I think it's Jeff Bezos that said, personal brand is what people say when you've left the room. It's what they say about you. It's not who you are. In this current environment with social media, we have an opportunity for our brands to be on 24/7. We're going to pop up somewhere, 24/7 globally, anywhere anyone can search us. So we want them to do that for the right reasons, but we want them to do it with remembering, oh, she's the one that, or he's the one, so that when they are looking for, there'll be perhaps people listening to this now who think, oh, I know exactly where I'm at, I know who I am and whatever. And then in a month's time or 2 months' time, they've gone, do you know what? I feel a bit stuck. Maybe I do need to kind of refresh and activate a new identity or think about a new hybrid professional title. And they'll remember title, earrings, identity,
I know.
red zebras.
Red zebra.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to break out of the traditional paths. People that are like, I need a job. I'm going to go to a resume writer first, or I'm going to find a career coach and they're going to tell me to do my strengths finders and another assessment. And now I've got it figured out. Like those tools aren't enough. And it's done. Like we need fresh ways.
Can I just give you one quick story? Years ago, I was working in outplacement in a very large global outplacement provider. A woman came to me. She came out of Defence Forces. She'd been through so many outplacement programs, so many online programs. She'd done it all, strengths, values, written her resume 10 different ways. She literally walked in with a stack of manila folders like this and put it on the table. And I said, how can I help you? And she said, I've done all this stuff. I've followed all the manuals. I've done all the online programs. I'm still not getting jobs. My resume doesn't feel like me. Help me integrate it all.
And what did you do?
Come to the right place.
Yeah.
I love this. But that's what can happen.
Yeah.
You know, if we're not pausing and integrating at our intersections.
Oh, you're so good.
We're just a bunch of manila folders with information. And as you say, another list of what we've done.
Yeah, I do think people that have more career history that haven't stopped to do this kind of reflection, or they get caught off guard and suddenly they're in a career transition and didn't expect it. And then they're like, who am I? I don't know what I am without that job or that job title. And they haven't really reflected on just who are they through all those years? What have they really been doing? How do they see themselves? And it's a lot of like integration work. It's self-reflection, it's self-consciousness. And I think most career coaches I know, like, I don't think they're really doing that kind of like building that through line and really reshaping identity. I don't know.
I think you're very possibly right. I'm just
trying not to like,
mindful of my colleagues. But, well, yeah, look, I like to think that that's what I do, and that's why I'm different about what I do.
I love it. Well, this feels like a great place to pause for today. I will probably need to have you back because there's just so much more you can share, I can tell. Is there anything you want to leave people with, like a final thought or a key idea? You're like, I want people to know this thing. Is there anything like that on your mind?
Look, I'm very, very, very strong about identity being not what you do, but who you are.
I love that.
And I'm really, really encourage people to go below the line. You know, above the line is how people see them, but below the line is where your stripes are.
Oh.
You know, it's where your individual zebra stripes are. And you need to go into there and see where that merges. And I'm talking not just about your professional identity, but your cultural identity, your social identity, and your personal identity. So I really urge people to do that. Identity is who you are, not what you do.
It's beautifully said. Yeah, there are a lot of identities we possess: social, personal, professional, cultural. And you have to kind of tease out and unpack that. And that's a lot of the research I do. And then I hone in just in the workspace because there's so many identities just in work.
Yes.
This has been fantastic. If people want to follow up with you, this is your website, right? redzebra.com.au.
So they can email me through there. Yeah.
Perfect. And if people are looking for me, follow me at More Than My Title, and my website's the same, morethanmytitle.com. Michelle, it's been a huge pleasure. I'm so, so glad you and I got in touch across the world. Thank you, Internet. And I've just learned so much from you too. So thank you for all you've shared.
And thank you, Sarabeth. And again, just keep talking about hybridity. I absolutely love that you're putting it out there. It makes it's a great reference point for me. I love it. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been really fantastic. Thank you.
Well, we'll keep shining the light back and forth because intersections all the way.
We'll have our own intersection soon. We'll have a new title.
I love it. Okay, Michelle, thank you. Until next time.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.